Welcome to the LightEdge Lounge. I'm Tommy Castle, Director of Sales, and I'm here with Michael Hannan, our Chief Security Officer, and Sean Kitts, our Vice President of Client Experience. Thank you guys for taking the time to answer a few questions today. I think to kick it off, our first question is really what's driving innovation in today's market?
Yeah, I think it's the world we're living in. I mean, we're living in a virtual world, right? We're working from home, education has been from home, but also the way we're engaging with service providers is changing, right? And there's other things in the world going on today too that are dictating kind of the pace of play with, either supply chain or labor, shortages. So I think we're just living in a world that's kind of dictating the need for innovation.
How are you seeing businesses innovating today?
Yeah, I think specifically, right? So LightEdge is seeing our customers really focus on that technology piece, right? And the way it's connecting really people, either to other people or to services, right? And kind of doubling down and really thinking through that. And not only just, hey, it's there, it's technology, it has to be there for us to run, but actually seeing it as a competitive advantage and leveraging technology in new ways that they really haven't in the past. I think we're kind of at that point where that focus to technology and also people and combining those two has become, I think, the focal point for a lot of organizations right now.
Yeah, and I would definitely say technology and even the vendor ecosystem, everything is being sucked into like a black hole all at once because it all has to be. Because I think part of one of your points of what's driving innovation is the end user, absolutely. But the speed to get something to the end user because they're consuming it 24/7, and they're doing it in all different ways. They may be interacting with 3 different applications all at once. Your speed to market on those things has to be so quick. So then you're bringing everything in-house because you've already diversified risk by using other people. You're now having to bring everybody to the table to have conversations. And that completely means reinventing your teams and how you're developing things, how you're testing them, how you're bringing it to market. All that life cycle is becoming incredibly small, which is great.
Yeah, for sure. And there's so much data, right? And figuring out how to, again, we see customers figuring out how to protect, store, and then also use that data, right? It's not just intangible, it's becoming a tangible asset for organizations. And everything's connected, right? So that data piece is becoming critical, not only to continue operations, but to make the business better for their customers, right? And I think that's been the focal point from the business perspective is, again, kind of how to use that data to better deliver that experience.
Yeah, and definitely taking the experience to the data for speed to market, analytical purposes, just moving that outside in, or inside out, it's critical right now. So we're seeing a lot of that.
So what are some challenges that are facing organizations today as they're innovating?
Absolutely. Sean briefly hit on the supply chain that he mentioned. That's a huge one. We're seeing all industries, no matter what anybody's doing, the supply chain's for sure impacting. The other side that we're seeing is access to talent at this point. Everyone's needing the same type of individual. In any one of the markets that LightEdge deals with, we're seeing limitations on the ability to get good talent, and that's definitely expanding the timeline of development for the customer experience for sure. The other bounds on those things, the impacts of just what's going on in the globe right now, especially within my world, security and cybersecurity incidents are really impacting how organizations are moving forward in the thoughtful process that they're developing these things. So it's huge.
Yeah, that's interesting, right? So, we see a lot at LightEdge, we see a lot of our customers that are from the lens of infrastructure and IT, right? And it was, hey, we have a centralized workforce. We need everything right here. We need it, where all of our workers are, our workforce is. Well, we become decentralized. And that access to that data, that access to that information is becoming critical. So is that experience that you still feel like you're with your coworkers, you still feel like you're with your customer, but yet you're working from home. Well, how do you do that? So a lot of these organizations have these legacy infrastructures that were built around the traditional kind of workforce, right? Well, now they have to figure out which workloads can go where, because maybe you need to figure out, how to spin up a new application for a new functionality for customers. But you still have your legacy, operating company that needs direct connections, that needs that big internet so that everyone can just work, right? So you got to figure out how to have that structure and that foundation to facilitate, to pivot on a dime for customers, but still run the business. And that foundation from a security perspective and a governance perspective is critical to be able to pivot where you need to, but still not introduce risk where you don't.
Yeah, and the nuances that brings into an organization when organizations went down a solid path for 30, 40 years doing the same thing over and over again, with slight innovations every once in a while. But overnight, you're saying, I need a secondary team to now go build out in a public cloud, whereas everything was done on site. But we still need everything to work. We need it to all go quickly. We need it to all fit our regulatory or compliance requirements. The end user support has to work on multiple different mobile devices. It's just incredible the amount of challenges and different nuances to the development that you're introducing now. And organizations are overnight having to kind of meet these needs, which is just incredible.
Yeah, exactly. I think also we've seen customers that they're focusing on that, right? They're focusing on net new, but they say, hey, we're running 2 tracks. We still got to keep the business running.
Yep.
So what do you do? Well, in some cases, you find partners or service providers that can help keep that business running, so you can build out that practice area or that new kind of proprietary thought process around the application or around a new experience for a customer, a new way to target customers, right? And that kind of 2 lanes, that 2 rail path has been critical, I think, for business to be able to pivot, but still, stay up and available and running.
Yep. Yeah. Michael, you mentioned cybersecurity. I know ransomware is kind of top of mind for everybody right now. Would you maybe dive into a little bit more on what role cybersecurity has on influencing innovation?
Yeah, absolutely. Organizations right now it's front and center. You've got board oversight, board vision on this now. So it's driving a lot of the questionnaires and different things that the businesses are doing. You've got the cyber insurance companies or insurance companies that are dictating what a lot of organizations are doing. So that's really set the scale of things. But most organizations don't want the security team to come in and add time to something or come in at the last minute and say, hey, the stuff you guys have done for 6 months, it's just not going to work. It's not within the bounds. So where we're seeing it be incredibly, where it works really well is where where the security teams are working closely with the development teams, the infrastructure teams, whatever it be, early on in the process. Everyone's coming to the table at once, and each of those teams is kind of laying like the groundwork or the guardrails for which direction things are going to go, and making sure they stick there. So you don't get any surprises like 3 to 6 months later. All that's already there, and these teams know exactly what the other's doing, and there's no gotchas as you're going through it. But the stuff that's dictating, those different things, even down to like the conversations we're having with customers on disaster recovery scenarios, and those change regularly. Organizations used to set something and say, hey, our DR strategy is this for the next 5 years, and not rethink it. We're seeing organizations that are having to refresh that every 6 to 12 months because the recovery times, the recovery points, the different ways customer interacting with data is changing specifically what's going on there. Different regions that the data needs to sit in because of privacy regulations and stuff like that. All these things are playing into the development piece. From the moment someone has an idea for the next step where the business is going, security and other teams have to be involved with this so that you're not doing any wasted effort, because all this stuff has to go to market so quickly. It's just, you can't make any missteps within the timeline that you're going through.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. So at LightEdge, we have the interconnected facilities, right? And diverse geographies. And I think we've seen folks really double down on that strategy of, hey, traditionally it was, hey, I need to see it, I need to know where it is. And now it's, hey, I need to not only have it up and available, but I also need to have it, as you said, secure and offsite as well. Yeah. And they're focusing, I think, on the, hey, not only does it need to be offsite, but it needs to work. And we need to test it and validate it, because we can't afford now for customers or for really the internal operations to ever have a hiccup. And then you take it a layer deeper on the connectivity piece and expanding that kind of decentralized workforce as well as user base. Now it becomes important where those workloads are running. You want them close. You want them close to your employees. You want them close to your customers. So now geography is less about maybe the physical office and more about who's using that data.
So as a result of innovation, what are some positive business outcomes that you've seen with some of our customers?
We've been fortunate to work with a lot of different industries, a lot of different organizations, but there's just some really simple things I think that we've seen folks do that are tremendous. So you think about a couple of banks we work with, they're really heavy maybe on the retail side or having the local presence to the community. And they have figured out how to still deliver that same experience, but do it online. Do it through video, and you still feel like you're a part of the community. You still feel like you're getting that personalized experience, but they're leveraging technology to do that, right? And they're helping folks that maybe couldn't get to a retail location still have that same experience. We work a lot with healthcare SaaS organizations, right? And with telehealth. In the past, you had to go to a doctor or to a medical office to get help. Today, we have the ability, organizations have the ability to deliver that same experience through telehealth. Now, there's all sorts of, again, security components that come into that, but when you have that foundation and then can leverage those platforms, it becomes really, really powerful for organizations and for their customers.
The conversations that we get brought on, or I get brought into on these, are incredibly exciting. I mean, being a part of other organizations going through the next revolution of this stuff is pretty neat. And the access or ability to better serve customers and us having a piece of that has been a lot of fun right now.
Well, Michael, Sean, thank you for taking some time to answer some questions for us. It was great to hear from your experience and expertise, and we want to thank you for tuning in today to the LightEdge Lounge, and we look forward to seeing you at TII events in the near future.